Excited to be here with my brother Matt. It's been months since we've done this. I'm fired up to have you back. We're talking about one of our favorite shows. Succession came to an end a couple days ago, so ready to talk about that. How you been though, pal?
It's been great. Yeah, it's been way too long. I know we kind of had this circled on the calendar for the Succession series finale because I don't know. I feel like that show kind of was a little bigger than a lot of other shows right now. Like that was one of the must see shows, kind of Sunday night you have to watch a prestige HBO show. And when they announced, 'cause it was surprising at the beginning of this year that this was like the final season. Like that kind of
I know.
just was announced prior to when it started airing.
It felt right though at the time. When they said this was the last season, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. It's been a good run, and I had confidence that they could finish it well. I think they did that. We'll get into that, but they announced that, and we finally made it to that point. So it's all
Yeah,
done.
nothing is worse for a TV show than when it goes on a little too long. It's always better to end a season early than a season late. And I think, hey, four like super strong seasons of just great quality TV. I think it was the right time, and we'll get into the actual finale. But I thought it was a great way to tie things up.
Very un-Game of Thrones like, where they had an actual strong end of their run, as opposed to Game of Thrones, which is probably one of the worst things I've ever seen end ever.
Yeah, they had it mapped out. I think Jesse Armstrong, the creator of the show, kind of when he said they were writing this final season, they were like, we have a clear map, and after this moment, sure, could they continue to tell the story of the Roys and where it's going? But like, it felt like a right time to end it. This was kind of the end of the story he wanted to tell. Years from now, I wouldn't be shocked if there's some kind of spin-offs or whatever. But for this,
You never do know, but
yeah, it was good.
it felt like a very tight, high-quality 4-season TV show that I think ended well. So why don't we haven't talked anything about our thoughts on the show or the finale. So why don't we just kind of dig into that series finale? What did you think of it?
So I very much enjoyed it. Like out of a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it an 8.5. I would say it was really. So I think it was an hour and a half long. The first hour, it kind of had that like series finale kind of feeling to it, where it kind of was like they were just trying to give people their moments, and some things I felt like dragged on a little too long. But
you got to give the siblings their moment together. You got to see the mom one last time. Yeah, everyone. I think series finales or season finales even have a tough time with that. Oftentimes the best episodes of these shows are the couple that precede it, and that's probably true for this series too.
So so that part I thought dragged on. The last 30 minutes I thought were complete like fire, and I was on the edge of my seat not knowing what was going to happen. So I don't know, you want to talk about the good versus the bad first, or what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Why don't we just talk about some of the key moments in the episode, and we'll just kind of go in sequence, so what it opened up with, basically Roman is at his mom's, which I actually don't know exactly where that is.
I heard
was it in the Bahamas?
It was Barbados. Yeah,
Barbados.
I love
okay,
that.
So
the mother's line, she's an incredible character, but she's like, leave it to me to find a shithole in paradise, and it's like this most gorgeous place, like awesome. Ridiculous home, and she calls it a shithole in paradise, which is funny.
But like that first part of the episode was just like, we find out Roman's there, and then it's like the mechanics of getting Shiv there, getting Kendall there, and it leads to that.
Shiv and Kendall, obviously two opposite sides. Shiv thinks, so they're going to the board meeting. Shiv thinks she gets the votes. Kendall's trying to get his votes, and they're just trying to track down Roman, who just kind of went MIA after election night. I mean, after the funeral where he kind of blew it, and it was just a reason. And one of my favorite things about this show, and I know we've talked about this is the show really just shows like billionaires being billionaires. You know what I mean? And it shows them going to
the flying all over the place, the cars, the walking in, elevators and back rooms, and great meals and beautiful spots. Yeah, it is.
It's like, cool. I'm just gonna go to Barbados, hop on my private jet, be there, and in 2 hours, have a car pick me up. It's just cool seeing like billionaires be billionaires.
So yeah, like them going to Barbados is like me going to Boston.
Exactly.
It's like
it's nothing.
It's nothing for them. Oh, that's it? They just got to go to Barbados? Oh, cool. Just drive me to the plane. It's waiting, and then I'll be there in 2 hours. No big deal.
Again, it was all good stuff. Nothing about this episode I didn't like. Having the siblings kind of all together was fun, and obviously their banter and kind of trying to get Roman and see where he was going to be, going and all that kind of stuff. I just felt like some of it just maybe dragged on a little bit too long when I hoped there was a few other things that they could have like tidied up and stuff.
Totally. So I should say that I hate the siblings. I do not like any of them. I don't think we like anybody on this show probably, but like I get what they're doing. They're giving them a sibling moment. You get a chance to see that these, there is relationships outside of this corporate world that they're all fighting to gain power of. So it was nice to see that, but like end of the day, I do not like any of these people. I think they're just terrible, terrible people, backstabbing, only care about power. It's, so I guess seeing them together was nice, but it did go on a little bit longer than I
was. Yeah, they're constantly like have like these little moments where they kind of remind you just like that they are terrible people and treat people really, really badly. But yet, not that you care for them, but you are invested like in what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
So while watching it, did you have like any? Like, were you hoping like Ken was gonna come on top? Or were you hoping Shiv was gonna come on top? What were you thinking, kind of as it was going on?
Well, I kind of felt like the episodes that preceded the finale that Kendall was putting the pieces in place to grab power, and that I thought it would be more of an ending where like he ended up with power, or I could have seen the ending being where he got the power that he was looking for, but that was at the sacrifice of everything in his life. Losing Rava, his kids, his siblings, his dad's dead. So this guy that worked hard to have all the power and just had like basically a lonely existence and would die a lonely man with just a bunch of money. So I could have kind of seen it going down that path. Obviously not what ended up happening, but I didn't really see a scenario that Roman ended up on top. And then Shiv's best bet, was being what ultimately happened to Tom.
Yeah.
But, so anyways, what did you want?
Like, it was so weird. Like,
something would happen?
I don't know if it's Jeremy Strong's performance as Ken or what it is, but I feel so terrible for him. And again, they are terrible people. They absolutely are also awful people. But look who their dad was. And like, look at then like at the funeral when you kind of found out like what Logan's upbringing was like and stuff. And it's just like a constant cycle of just terrible parenting, and I mean, he was emotionally, and even with like Roman, they hinted at physically abusive to his kids. His kids were just broken people, and I couldn't help but feel freaking terrible for them.
They are a product of their upbringing. Like their dad's one of the most powerful persons in the world. The mom's a freaking train wreck. They talk about them being brought up where they're just sitting outside of boardrooms, all day long. Playing and doing whatever, and the dad's constantly playing games with them. So in a sense, they are the worst people, but like it is not, it's their fault. It's not their fault. Like, that's the way that's their life, and that's, so you have to kind of put yourself in their shoes a little bit.
Ken said in this episode, and he said it during the eulogy, at his dad's funeral, but like he was 7 years old when his dad told him like this was going to be all his one day, and to grow up with that pressure. And he even said, what is his dad was a terrible, awful person, but my God, I hope that's in me as well. You know what I mean? Like he just wanted to be his dad. This is all he wanted in his whole life was this job, so.
And he very much showed glimpses of his dad in certain ways. I mean, he didn't have it obviously like Logan Roy, but he did things that were like his dad and probably would have made him proud and in the way he handled situations. We'll probably talk about some of those things, but of the three of them, he probably would have done the best job, I guess. But they're all fucking train wrecks.
So it was good, and I think it was a reason to kind of get them together, get them in a beautiful location to hang out for a few days, filming, and they had a great time. But the conversation, and it all made sense. Like logically, it made sense. Like Ken found out that Matsson was going to screw over Shiv, and when he got that phone call and kind of let Shiv know, and Shiv did her own research. And you could see them kind of coming together. And this is the whole this happened so many times throughout the series where they're...
So many times. It's happened like 3 times this season.
If they come
Never
together
mind all the other times.
And just stay together as the 3 of them, they could be like competent and like because they all have their own strengths, but someone always ends up effing it up. It's just not in their nature and stuff. So I thought, the swimming scene was a little long, and the meal fit for a king scene was a little...
What were your thoughts on the meal fit for a king?
Just a little... It was, again, fun. You like the camaraderie between the three of them and that kind of stuff. It just was probably about 4 minutes too long. You know what I mean? We got the point and stuff, and there were some other things I feel like they didn't necessarily tie up. that I would have liked to have in that time.
Take that spot. Something I listened to made it seem or implied that the meal fit for a king was maybe something they had done in their childhood or something. So not that they've referenced it in the past, at least that I don't believe, but
yeah,
just trying to make them look like siblings that have a history that goes well before what we have seen on the TV show. So maybe to some degree it did that, but yeah, it could have ended definitely kind of like our conversation talking about it, but we're
exactly.
on too long about
exactly.
it. So you mentioned Shiv finding out what Matsson's plan was. So let's talk about that conversation that Matsson and Tom had at the restaurant. Like, what an interesting conversation that is. Matsson, man, I can't even put myself in that dude's shoes because, you know, he's like one of those people that's just like a handful of people like that in the whole world, you know, with how he is and the stuff that he says to Tom. And, you know, when he's basically asked Tom to sell himself and Tom has to like explain why, you know, why he'd be good for the job and everything that he says about just basically that he'll do anything and take pain and all that. I thought it was very interesting.
And Matsson, when Logan, when they said, well, not Logan, when they came to the decision, like Logan was going to die in episode 3, which was, you know, incredible. And there's still 7 more episodes to go. They needed a character. And I thought the seeds they planted with Matsson last year, Alexander Skarsgård, he was incredible. He was probably one of my best, best winners of the season. He was just fantastic. I loved Matsson as a character. He was super interesting. Would just say crazy shit that didn't care at all about what he said.
Yeah, but like that's his life.
That's his life.
He probably has a bunch of like yes men around him, you know, in a different way than Logan does, and he can literally do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He can tell Tom to his face that he thinks he could sleep with his wife and that she can sleep with him too in the right situation. And what does he care? You know, like what's Tom going to do?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he knows Tom is a pushover.
It's just a weird existence. You can't even imagine being that type of person. It's just not a way that we can possibly live.
I thought so when that happened, I was shocked. I'm like, holy smokes, is Tom gonna be at the helm at this? And I thought for some reason maybe he was gonna tell Shiv beforehand or he wasn't gonna accept it, but not in this world. You know, Tom came from a middle income family in the Midwest and just wanted to rise in power, and then, you know, look at him now, you know?
Yeah. He's a guy that doesn't ultimately have any beliefs. I think he just wants the money and the power, and he'll do whatever. I mean, you saw it in the election night episode where, you know, right or wrong, how it all played out. He just do whatever they said. You know, hey, call the election for Mencken.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, sure. You know, like he'll do whatever needs to be done to like maintain his position and then potentially move upwards.
And it's exactly what Matsson wanted. He just wanted a guy that could be the face of it, be the front man, but literally Tom will do anything that Matsson says. We'll give 0 pushback. We'll take all the blame. And then, you know, Tom is now in this amazing position, but like, how long will he be there? You know, it's nuts.
So I love the word or the idea of being a pain sponge.
Pain sponge.
So he's the pain sponge.
He's a pain sponge. He'll do, he'd do anything for Matsson, and you know, and that's exactly what Matsson wanted to hear. You know, so also kind of part of that because Greg kind of wanted to find out what's going on. Awesome usage of the translation app on your iPhone, like when that is Swedish.
Yeah, good move.
Yeah, good move.
Freaking Greg, man. I don't know how I feel about Greg. I know everyone loves Greg. I mean, I like his character. He's definitely like entertaining, but man, like, if I had a guy like Greg in my life, man, I would not like that guy. He's just like so opportunistic, such like a me guy, you know, like
he goes wherever the wind blows, and that's kind of what Greg does. But like, again, to his credit, he's, you know, the highest paid executive assistant in the world, $200,000. Tom said he's going to get a big pay cut now, but he finds ways, you know, and he called Ken because he didn't know Tom was going to get the job. If he knew Tom was going to get the job, he probably would have stayed with Tom. But he, you know, he wanted to give that information to Ken, and you know.
But it's like, what can Ken even offer him in that moment? I guess like you just kind of give him the information, kind of hope it all works out afterwards. That Ken remembers him, you know, and hooks him up with something. Which he probably would.
Greg credit, the guy's ballsy. He literally just, you know, I love how this season he just threw himself into conversations. Like literally, dude, like went up to Mencken, you know, what that was gonna think people were gonna be the president. Just started talking to him. The guy does not care at all, and so the dinner scene, was when that kind of happened, and then things started unraveling for Shiv and started scrambling, and kind of went towards the end.
Yeah, so I feel like there's more to talk about with Greg, but we'll get to him. We'll get to him more in the end. So that was this conversation was a very big part of the the episode. The next thing that comes to mind is the last time we see Connor when they go to the house.
Yeah.
The siblings go to the house, and he has like this elaborate way that people are going to claim all this stuff in the apartment or the whatever you want to refer to it as. And he had like a second tier list of the bereaved. And
is that something that you're going to be bringing to all your closings and when you're selling homes with real estate agents? Is this dot system?
This great dot system, and I don't even think I fully understand it. I have to like rewatch that scene. There was a lot of moving parts. There was a lot of rules, but like there's definitely a tier system to things.
Yeah.
And he kind of had his first pick before all of them, which was kind of funny. But he's such a quirky character, and I thought it was actually a really good way to see him.
Yeah, he was great. Alan Ruck, he's just a great performance by him. And he had his moments to shine this season too. He's always been a secondary character, wasn't part of like the big three siblings, and he had some great stuff. And although I was so buzzed, I thought like him and Willow's relationship was like the one good relationship on it, but it really seems like things are already starting to unravel.
The 2-week itch.
The
2-week itch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Willa is obviously miserable, right? I mean, it's like you feel bad for Connor because he's just kind of like an idiot, you know what I mean? But he doesn't have that evil side that the other siblings have, so it's like, it's maybe, he's harmless. So maybe like you want his relationship to work out, but it's obviously clear that she's with him for the money, which is normal in those guys' lives. Probably a lot of their wives are probably, fighting through things just for the marriage. So it's interesting to hear that he may go to Slovenia and she's going to work on a play for 6 to 8 months.
No, I think it's a good time because then we can talk about the last 30 minutes and that kind of stuff. So, and I don't know if it was a little problem with it, but with Mencken, the president, although one ATN ended up calling him for president. So it sounds like he will not be president, and they're going through the legal system. What did you end up?
They planted the seed for that to not come like that. They made, I think the last reference to it was Shiv saying something about like there's a court something happening, and it very much implied that it's not a sure thing that Mencken's going to be president.
That was the only bummer. I really like the Mencken storyline.
You're a big Mencken guy, yeah. You definitely
huge Mencken guy, yeah. Huge. Would vote for him anytime. What a good man that he is. But like, they spent a lot of time the last few episodes really building up Mencken, and I understand that them calling it on the network doesn't mean he is legitimately going to be the president. It just kind of caused a bunch of chaos and stuff. But I definitely feel like that was a very much brushed aside. I wish, like they said, the 4 minutes that we had with King of the, a meal fit for a king or some things, that there was one more Mencken appearance or phone call or something to just kind of put a bow on that.
I listened to something last week leading up to the finale and people making predictions maybe on a podcast. And one of the things was the idea of a flash forward in time.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it necessarily would have worked in Succession. It didn't seem like that kind of show. And the way that it ended, I think is probably the best way it could have ended. But I thought when they mentioned that it would be cool to see, maybe flash forward 5-10 years and you do see, what ended up happening. And one of the things that would have been cool to see is what happened with that presidential election and how that affected things. But I guess it's just one of those things that I'm just going to assume didn't work out for Mencken.
Because I was invested because, again, the big thing about getting an American CEO was because that was what would put Mencken over the top for the regulators to do it. So it's like, if he's not going to be president or whatever, I think, Masson just said he didn't want to stir up the markets and wanted to keep things consistent. But like, that was one issue I had, which I just wish there was a little bit more of the Mencken stuff. But that's a very, very nitpick of this. So anyway, all right. Want to get to the last 30 minutes or?
Yeah, I think we should. The last thing I want to say is I did really enjoy the video that they showed in at Connor's place.
Yeah, Carl. Voice of an angel.
Dang, man. Jeez, bro. I mean, who got Carl's just all around, man. He's one of my favorite characters this season. So he's got it. I'm gonna have to see if they put that on Spotify yet.
That song, download it. I'll be climbing the charts, no question. That little Carl singing that song. But
that video of Logan and those people at that table was a good send off, I think, for Logan. I mean, that's the last time we see him.
Absolutely.
Talk, maybe.
It's a lot. You don't see him again.
So it was cool. It was like a very normal setting, made him look like a normal person, surrounded by friends and laughs, and doing that reverse presidential losers.
Yes. That's it
was cool. And it was notable that Shiv, Kendall, and Roman weren't at that table with him. It was Connor and the business people that he surrounded himself by so much.
I didn't even think of that. That's a great point. And you could see Roman specifically watching that and just welling up and being emotional. It's like, it just shows like no matter how effed up their relationship was with their dad and all all the terrible things he did, he still was their dad. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that was, even when all the shit was going down this season before he died, it's like they were genuinely upset when he died. You know what I mean? It was crazy, So yeah, it was a good send off, and then that kind of catapulted into like the final stretch.
So that final 30 minutes was basic. I'm trying to think, like the way that I remember it was just kind of getting into the board meeting, everyone arriving at the office.
Me, it was
there's a little bit of stuff.
The second Shiv had that conversation with Tom, when Tom said, it's me, and Shiv couldn't believe it. And then I don't have his name, but the music in the final 30 minutes was sensational. Like, it was so good. And I think when she ended up walking off and scrambling and the piano was playing, it is like, it is on right now. Like, what is going to happen at this board meeting?
So at that point, you just assume. So I'm not someone that, when I watch a show, I guess I'm not like super caught up in like making predictions. So like some people, I wonder what some people would think in that moment. Like, okay, she's definitely going back and it's going to be Kendall. Or do you think in that moment, like, well, maybe, you know how their relationship it is so up and down. They can say the worst things to each other and then they're back on each other's side the next moment. Like, are you walking away thinking that she's going to, she's going to turn and do this and make this happen for Tom? Like, what are you thinking in that moment?
You knew that the plan wasn't going to happen like that. Like, you knew, like, it was too tidied up for Ken to have the votes. Like, there's no way in hell Ken was going to get through, like, as they were building that up. You knew something was going to happen. And I did not quite know it was going to be Shiv until, like, in the boardroom when they just started, they kind of focused on her for like a few extra seconds than like a normal shot, and you could just see in her eyes, like, kind of like looking off in the distance, and you're like, she's not okay. Roman, when he started did his thing, I was curious about him too, but
you just never know with Roman. He messed up the first vote back in the first season.
That was a good kind of callback, because I remember that moment, and that, like, Logan just freaking firing off, just like naming people and just like not following the rules, and just showed what a force.
Such a great scene that first episode, or first season, I should say. So they went around the room and the votes kind of went the way that you would expect them to vote. I'm never sure about the Sandys, how that was going to go, but it all led
to Shiv's moment, and then kind of storming off into the boardroom, and then the other boardroom where the three of them, the three siblings, go. And I thought that was one of the best scenes of the whole series, where just shit just starts unraveling, and you see it in Kendall's face, being like,
he's just trying to hold it all together.
I am so close. Like, what? Like, where did this come from?
He will say anything in that moment. She brings up the fact that he killed that person, and he's like, nope, it never happened. And you're just like, this guy, he's like grasping at everything he can do to hold this together. And that was just one example of him being willing to say anything. But
and then him just yelling, like, I am the eldest boy, which is something that, I mean, you yelled.
I say that all the time between the two of us.
I am the eldest boy. I am the eldest boy, which is strange. But it's something
It's so weird of a thing to say, but like, I mean, it's honestly not that out of character for him. And it's the truth, I mean, like you said, Logan's been telling him since he was 7 that this was all his. Like, he's had it in his mind.
He had it. It was right there. He thought, like, it was literally right there. He won, and then this curveball kind of out of left field, from Shiv, and it's all gone. It's all gone in that moment. But the conversation when she's like, you killed a guy, and then he completely spun that around and said it didn't really happen. And then that threw Roman. Now Roman all of a sudden was out too.
Yeah. So what did you think about that callback to him killing someone, like, in that moment? Like, I felt like it was a little bit weird for me. Like, it's true, like, obviously a huge consideration in this whole thing, but like, I almost feel like that would have came up at a different time. Now you're objecting to it, like, I could see more her being like, you're an idiot, dude. You know what I mean? And like, I'm just realizing this now, like, it's almost like I could see that as her reasoning for voting against it more than just the kill. Like, she doesn't give a shit about him killing someone.
I know, and I think, and I heard this kind of on another podcast kind of we were listening to, and I kind of agree with it, that I think she kind of had her mind made up, and then that was just kind of her excuse. Like, in the moment, to kind of justify, like, one other reason why she's not voting for him is like, dude, you killed a guy. You killed a kid. You know what I mean? And that was kind of, I guess, I don't think that was not the reason why she didn't vote for him. She did not vote for him because she didn't want him to be the CEO, thought he'd be terrible for it, did not want him to win. but kind of use
And he would
that.
be terrible.
He would be. Yeah. The whole thing would have probably burnt to the ground with him there. But I think when she said that, and the look on his face, and then him saying it didn't happen, and Roman kind of, wait, so you just played us for that? And then the fight ends up happening and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Kendall, when Roman and him are fighting, was going for like the Oberyn Martell eye gouge thing with his thumbs in his eyes.
We didn't talk about, not that I want to go too far back, but we didn't talk about the hug that Kendall gave Roman, where he opened up his stitches because he was hugging him so hard. It was a very intense moment.
All I could think about watching that was Gladiator, when Joaquin Phoenix goes to hug his dad, and he suffocates his dad in the hug, and it wasn't quite the same thing. But so I have a question about that, actually, real quick. Why did he do that? Did he do it because he was talking about how Roman was talking about his cut looked too good, and he wanted to make it look worse? Was it a power move? I don't understand.
I thought of it as a power move over him, just trying to dominate him, but it might have been more of trying to create a visual thing. But I thought he was just trying to assert dominance over him.
Roman was such a mess by the end of this. You know what I mean? And he's a piece of shit.
An absolute shell.
He's not.
Shell of himself.
I think one of the worst. It will probably. I think he's the worst. Actually, I think he's terrible. But he's a broken.
There is no doubt he is the worst.
Broken boy.
He doesn't care about anything or anyone, and he's just a freaking nightmare of a person.
Yeah. That's where just Kendall was feeling it. He was really riding high at that time, and then it all comes crumbling down, and just when he goes, it's funny because in that scene, you don't even see Shiv go in and place the vote.
No, you don't. He just goes back there and he tries to delay it. And was it Frank that maybe says,
it's over.
It's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. And she voted for the for the sale.
One of the so Shiv ends up voting for the sale. It goes through. Kendall's a piece. An absolute wreck. One that I thought was funny, and just an interesting choice, was when he got in the elevator to go down, that someone went in the elevator with him. You remember that?
I know, that was weird. That was weird. Who is this guy?
And just made a casual I'm gonna go in the elevator with you. And what an elevator ride that must have been.
They must have been very talkative. I'm surprised people are even allowed to go in the elevator with him, right? He's just some random freaking accountant or something like that walks in the elevator.
Where's Colin at this point? You know what I mean, right? The Grim Reaper or whatever, his bodyguard.
On one of the podcasts, it was mentioned, is the show better if instead of going down to what ended up happening, if he went up to the roof and jumped off? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I was very much wondering if we were going to see him kill himself at the end of this. Same. And I even thought when at the very, very end, when he's walking up to the water, I'm is he going to jump in? And who knows what happens if he does or not. I'm glad.
Part of me would have thought it would be more interesting if he was standing on the edge of the water looking out, and then that's when they ended it. But he was on that bench, wasn't he?
No, he was on that bench. He went in the water and then sat down. He was not.
So it's not so I don't think they even created that potential of I guess you could really extrapolate and say, wonder about what ended up happening. But if he was closer to the water, they could have left it a little bit more unsaid as to whether or not he jumped in the water or not, because he's had a couple of those floating scenes, and there's been the thing with him with water and pools and face down one end of the season, and that could have been interesting. But I would have been disappointed if he jumped up. That would have been
he even used it as a threat with Shiv in the fight. You know what I mean? He's I'm dead if I don't get this job. This is my whole life. You know what I mean? So, but I'm glad they didn't. That would have been too grim. I feel like
the way it ended with him. Was better, I think. It was very, he had that look on his face. He was just an absolute mess, and it's just weird to say because I think again another thing I heard is that he's got $1.8 billion through that sale.
Yeah,
and, but I guess.
But all he cares about is that position, and
that position,
and we talk
power,
about again Roman, just ruthless guy. What set Kendall off to have him fight was him basically just saying his kids were. Not really his kids. We knew one was a dog. That was
has that been mentioned in this show previously?
I know they're different color skin than Kendall and Rava. One is for the daughters. The thing is these you don't see these kids since season 1, so I don't remember. But there was a son who it sounded like I heard somewhere that maybe she had in vitro and wasn't his legitimate kid. But what a thing to say. That was bad of Roman, and then it kind of ends up with their fight with Roman kind of just saying, we're all bullshit. This is all bullshit.
Which is, I read some stuff about people not loving that, and I actually thought it was great because I thought it was very true.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
they are all bullshit.
Yeah.
They're just a bunch of rich kids that their dad happened to be very powerful and very successful, but like, the businessmen were always doing the business, and these kids were always kind of operating on the fringe, fighting about this power, and it's just a big joke.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
it is.
I love the whole line that Logan had earlier in the season when he referred to them as not. Yeah, I love you, but you're not serious people.
Serious
it's
people.
True, you guys are it's bullshit.
They have no idea what they're doing. It's all an act for them. They think that they are king.
It's like a game.
Yeah, but they just were born into it, and they have no ability or skills to run a business that big. And it just kind of shows that, like, there are people like that in the world, like in the country.
Totally.
It's like inherit shit, and they just have didn't earn it, and they have no idea what they're doing. But it really shows how powerful these, a news organization is, and it's crazy, that's kind of all happening. But so that happens. Kendall goes down in the elevator, and then
they do the ceremony.
Great turtleneck, by the way. I almost wore that same outfit that Mattson was wearing.
I wear that all the time.
It's a phenomenal outfit that Mattson was pulling off at the ceremony.
Hey, he's the man. It was fitting to have Roman go in there.
He did not want to go in. He did not want to
go in there at all. He saw Jerry, did not like that.
Okay. One of my other biggest gripes. I cannot believe, and I'm really like this, but bugs me. Jerry, who I thought one of my favorite characters of the whole series, one of the best characters, didn't even have a line in this episode. Like, didn't say you saw her in the distance.
Didn't say a word?
Nope. You saw her in the distance through the glass, and then
she said something to Frank and Carl, I thought.
I know Carl and Frank at the end were just talking about themselves, talking about the golden parachute and that kind of
stuff. Or running it back.
With Tom. But Jerry,
Jerry didn't have any good moments this whole season, I don't think.
I thought the moment in the boardroom with her and Roman when she called him out was a good moment, but it ended up being her.
Yes, yeah. I mean, she was, let him have it, and she was being strong in that moment, and good for her. But, like, I just, I love Jerry, too. I thought she was an awesome character.
Who was the one going into this episode where I'm like, she was the one I was rooting for, actually, that somehow become but
they just hadn't laid any breadcrumbs for that to happen.
No.
But I know what you mean. She would have been great.
Yeah.
But so he was weird about seeing her, but he ultimately went in there and they did the photo op, and you can see Tom's a little bit different after that happens. He seems a little bit more stoic.
Absolutely.
And, it's almost like CEO Tom versus like the Tom that we've known.
Even he was saying, it's very stoic, the way he's walking down the hallway, shaking hands, and it's just so funny. Like Hugo coming up to him and just just like kissing his ass right away, and it's just all these people. All they do is just suck up to whoever's winning, and what a world,
It is such a world, and then obviously he said to Shiv, I have a car leaving in 20 minutes, and they ultimately got into that car together, and I thought it was a great shot of him looking out the window, her looking straight. He looks miserable. She looks miserable. He puts his hand out. She puts her hand on top. They don't actually hold. That's weird. I don't
the least intimate handhold.
It's like her hand is resting on his hand, but it's like it can't be comfortable for anybody.
And they have a baby.
Well, so I mean, she basically voted on a loveless marriage just to be adjacent to power, and they have a kid together, and.
So she's the only one who's still in the game, I think. Yeah. You know what I mean? As far as Roman is out, Kendall is out, but Shiv is still in. And she's married to the CEO of ATN who has all the power.
But CEOs are, it's interesting to me because CEOs are not heirs to a company. Yeah. They're not the founders of companies. CEOs come and go. Yeah. They get let go. Like, it's not like you're guaranteeing that Tom's going to be CEO of whatever they call this company, if it's still Waystar or not, or if it becomes Gojo or whatever. But so it's such a temporary thing for him to be CEO. Yeah. And honestly, she probably ends up just like her mother. I feel like she's destined to go down that path of being an awful mom, because they've referenced that a whole bunch of times. And she's even, mentioned the idea of having the nanny raise the kid and, being back to work pretty quickly after having it. So it just seems, at the end of the day, it seems like everybody lost, even though Tom won.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because Tom's, now, what's Tom's life? You know what I mean? Yeah, he's got this prestige and this, CEO stuff. But yeah, you know what, Tom, though, just as a series whole was I love Tom. My favorite character. That actor who played him was hilarious. Some of the funniest moments of the show came from Tom. Yeah. And he ended up pulling it off. So,
did you hear the theory about his name?
I did hear that. Why don't you go ahead and give that?
So just for the listeners, there was a TikTok video I think came out last week, and it predicted that he won and it's because his name Wamsgans.
Yep, Wamsgans. Tom Wamsgans.
Wamsgans.
Yep.
As my computer's being weird, was basically the same last name as a Bill Wamsgans, who had the only unassisted triple play in baseball back in 1920s in the World Series or whatever. And the first episode was a baseball game. And because of this, they theorized that he, it was predicted from the first episode that he would take out all three of the main siblings and be the CEO, which is a freaking brilliant theory.
It's an incredible theory. If that is in fact I
haven't heard Jesse Armstrong come out and say that, but the person that theorized this said they always pay attention to weird last names in shows, and they always go to look it up to see if there's any meaning. Wamsgans is never heard that last name in my life, so if I was someone that cared about that stuff, which I'm not, I would be like, okay, why did they pick Wamsgans? There has to be a reason why. And I mean, that's a pretty tight little theory, so I don't know. That's
incredible theory. If they knew this back in episode 1, that
they planted the seed with his name, and
and then the baseball reference. Which, that would be incredible.
I've seen Jesse Armstrong say that he knew for a while that it was going to be Tom, but I haven't heard him say that, the naming part and from day one that they've known. So
and how they did it all made sense. You know what I mean? How it became to be Tom, and how Mattson, you could tell the last few episodes were starting to be a little bit more cold towards Shiv. You knew that wasn't going to happen. Even at the beginning of this episode, Mattson, the way he was acting when Shiv was talking to him, he's like, he could not be less interested in her. So and then
So okay, well that's the recap. We're going long, so we might as well talk a few more minutes about things. But where do you think this puts Succession on the list of TV show Mount Rushmore type stuff? I consider this very, very good TV show. Got to be in that handful of conversation of best TV shows ever from beginning to end. I think it stuck the landing for the most part. I don't know.
I completely agree. I don't want to do the recency bias thing. You know what I mean? Looking at
we're doing it anyway.
Exactly. My it probably is in my top 5 just because it was just every episode was so strong, and they were terrible people, but I enjoyed hanging out with them for an hour every day, and they were just
they always went to nice places, like you said, and we're in nice planes and boats.
And there were people my favorite episode was the season finale, episode 3, when they were in Italy and they ended up kind of rushing back, and their dad ended up doing all this stuff behind the scenes with Mattson, and they go into the boardroom, and Tom is the one who ends up backstabbing them in that episode. And that was one of the best hours of television I've ever watched. Yep. And there are a few other, episodes that I feel just as strong about, It was
so many good moments.
And the cast was ridiculous. The acting in it was just so good. Jeremy Strong, and if you take 5 minutes to Google any of this stuff, he's one of the method actor type peoples, and I guess he drove people insane on set. But
I think everyone hates him. Yes, but he's a really good actor. I think they all hate him on the cast.
I think so too.
But
he's a very
but he's a
dude.
Really good actor.
Yeah, but you can't deny how good he is in this. How he kind of fluctuates from being, a hip hop enthusiast CEO bro to just throwing out this business jargon, as if he's just reading, you know what I mean? Reading
He does some good presentations, and he does have a good line. But I always think back to the first, I didn't start watching this show until before the 3rd season, so I wasn't one of the day one guys. But so I'm catching up, and everyone loves this show, and I throw it on, and I think the beginning of the first episode is him jumping in with some hip hop on, and I'm like, this guy's a freaking absolute fraud joke,
100%.
and he ultimately is still, but he definitely has evolved a lot through the series.
And just all of them. Shiv was incredible. She had so many moments this season where she was just incredible acting. And Kieran Culkin, man, good for him. I hope, anxious to see what they go on and do and stuff. If and I'm sure hopefully something, but it's gonna be tough to shake this.
I think of people probably maybe Tom and Roman more than anyone, maybe even Shiv too. I don't know how these people, can be in anything else and not be pictured as. It's almost like a Kramer type thing, or where these people that they're always going to be Roman and Tom. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what happens in their career, but man, they're pretty entrenched in their characters from Succession.
But as a Succession as a whole, I've been trying to think for this, what other show right now that has this kind of weight or an HBO prestige type show, and I couldn't think of one, so that's what I'm gonna miss. It was just a phenomenal show you look forward to every year.
Definitely not House of Dragons.
That's on
what else?
For sure. But like something like White Lotus,
I actually
like White Lotus
White Lotus.
is like that's I think kind of like must see when it comes on. But that's like an anthology series where every year is a different cast.
It's
and
different than
different.
Succession that just kind of carries over from season to season. Yeah, I don't know what takes the reign. I don't think there's anything that's a mature series that's 3-4. I mean, something like Yellowstone. Do people watch that show?
Love it. Yeah,
I've never got into it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's nothing like Succession that's like 3 or 4 seasons in that you're wondering when they're going to end it, and is must see TV.
Yeah.
At least for me. So
and it shows
it's a little bit of an end of an era.
HBO's king. HBO is so good. You know what I mean? What they do,
So good.
this stuff they produce. It was just an incredible show. I'm gonna miss seeing it, on Sundays, and that it's not coming back. Because again, looking at this could easily keep going, but they ended it at a great spot, and here we are.
Cool. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap it up. I had wanted to do like favorite moments and favorite characters, but we just spent 40 minutes on it. I think we touched on a lot of stuff, and I'm glad we got a chance to chat about it.
Yeah, me too. It's great show. And I guess we kind of talked about there were a couple other things. People want to stop listening now, but I know you kind of had
if you're here for the Succession talk, now's probably a good time to wrap it up. We're going to chat about a couple other things for another 10 minutes.
But
thanks for listening to the Succession stuff so far.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, you had a big weekend. You, dad of the year, our parents of the year. You guys went down to MetLife and watched Taylor Swift you brought your 2 girls, Audrey and Ellie. Tell me, what was that experience?
Taylor Swift, man. What Taylor Swift has consumed my life for the past 10 days. Actually, for the past like 4 months, probably I should say, but kind of reliving the past 10 days though for anyone that's listening still at this point. But Taylor Swift is obviously in the middle of a concert, the Eras Tour, which is like a big deal for a certain segment of people and girls and guys and all this stuff. So anyways, she was in Foxborough last weekend. And I think we had something Friday, Saturday night. So we're like, hey, let's go down Sunday night to the concert. We had heard some friends of ours were able to buy some last minute tickets for $400 or $500 a piece, which to me is freaking insane as that is. I've never paid that amount of money per ticket for a concert. But anyways, friends did this. I'm like, you know what, let's go down Sunday. Girls really love Taylor Swift. Tara would want to see Taylor Swift. I would want to see Taylor Swift. So we went down there without tickets. And we got down there and I was on Ticketmaster the whole time. I've been told to like refresh the website every second. I did that for 4 hours. Nothing ever showed up. Went on StubHub. The tickets never dropped below. I have been telling people they've never dropped below $1,400 a piece that day. But that $1,400 doesn't include these crazy fees at freaking StubHub and Vivid Tickets and SeatGeek. They charge like $300 per ticket service bullshit fees, right? So the tickets never really dropped below like $1,700. We did not buy the tickets for that amount of money on that night. So we went down there and left without seeing the concert, and everyone's having the time of their life. You can hear the music in the stadium. We're walking back to our car and driving back, and I'm just like, that was freaking awful. But it was good for the girls. We gave it a go. We set the expectation. They were actually handled it pretty well. Ellie maybe cried a little bit for a sec, her eyes watered, but it was a good life lesson for them, and it didn't work out. Anyways, the whole next week, we're like, well, if we're going to go see Taylor Swift, it's going to have to be this next week in New York, because after that, it's Detroit, it's Chicago, it's Denver, it's Seattle, it's LA. Like, we're not flying someplace to go see her. So anyways, monitored tickets all week. They were expensive, even more expensive than that night we went to Foxborough. I'm like, I don't know how we're going to pull this off. But Ticketmaster releases tickets sporadically throughout the week, and I would kind of try to jump on that when it happened. Never was able to get them through Ticketmaster. But on Saturday, the girls were at their recital, their earlier dance recital, and I was kind of home doing some stuff, and I was continuing to monitor this. And I think Ticketmaster had like a big dump of tickets where people were buying them. But the bullshit thing is, and I want to freaking do a podcast about this, I feel like I want to do like an investigation. Like, they release the tickets, but bots buy the tickets, and they get listed on freaking StubHub like within a second, so it's like, great, Ticketmaster releases a bunch of tickets and like no actual people get them. It's a bunch of robots and they all get listed. So anyways, I noticed that this was happening, and there was a flood of tickets on StubHub on Saturday, and it actually drove the prices down for that moment in time to what was cheaper than anything we would have gotten in Foxborough, and honestly cheaper than anything I saw afterwards too. So I just pulled the trigger and I bought 3 tickets, because they were still expensive, but they were cheaper than what they had been. And I knew that we would drive down there and the girls would go, Aubrey, Ellie, and Tara, and I would just kind of hang out and watch Succession, which I did. Right? So I posted the picture online. I sat down in my chair, threw my laptop on, stadium in the background, listening to T Swift lightly in the background, watching Succession. But anyways, so they went in there, had the time of their life. It was freaking perfect night weather-wise. She played from 7:55 to like 11:30. Tara said 50 songs. Some people say 40 something songs, but girls were singing and dancing the whole time, and it was awesome, dude.
It's going to be something that they're going to remember for their entire lives. How hard their parents worked to get this happen that's just so cool, man. It's awesome. I know my wife Heather was at the Foxborough show, and we've not stopped.
She was.
We have not.
She was at the show that we couldn't get into, so we're like, God damn, Heather's there.
I know, and and since then we've been nonstop Taylor Swift in this house, and I've been watching their concert videos and all that kind of stuff. So we're just a huge Taylor Swift family now. So
I was telling Dad on the phone, like, our kids definitely appreciate it in as much of as a 8-year-old and 11-year-old can appreciate it. Like, they sincerely do. But like, my hope is that it's a memory for them at some point. And I was telling Dad, like, I remember him taking my first basketball game, at the Garden before it was TD Garden, and so I hope that those memories, last, and I think they will. So that was the whole idea behind it. It was their first concert, and the whole road trip down to New York, which is fun, which isn't that bad of a drive.
No.
I mean, it was a 4.5-hour ride from our house to MetLife Stadium, which is, really is nothing at the grand scheme of things. So we left that day, got down there pretty smooth. It's actually a lot easier traffic wise than Foxborough. It's like I don't fully understand the layout of everything, but it seemed to me that like people can get in there fairly easy, and then when you get out, there's like 100 directions that you can go, and the traffic really like dissipated, as opposed to like you get out of Foxborough, you wait an hour to get out of the parking lot, and then you're waiting another hour on Route 1 because everyone's going the same direction to 95. It's like as soon as I got out of the parking lot in 45 minutes, we were gone, and it wasn't too bad.
I'm sure they're Aubrey and Ellie are telling all their friends today at school. It's awesome, bud. What a cool thing. And Taylor Swift's awesome. I don't care what anyone says. She's the absolute best.
We listen to Taylor Swift nonstop on the way down there and nonstop on the way back, and that's all it's been for months now anyway. So it's like I know every single song anyway. So like I'm a full-blown Swiftie at this point.
I don't care what anyone says. She's the Beatles of our generation. There's no one that can do what she's doing right now with ticket sales. I mean, how many people were just like you said at the stadium at Foxborough on Sunday that were not in the stadium, were outside just listening to the music? It's insane.
There was a whole crowd of people that night in Foxborough doing that, but also at MetLife too, because obviously I wasn't in there, so I was waiting for them afterwards. I probably spent the last 45 minutes right outside the stadium listening to the concert. But like, as with 2,000 other people had lawn chairs. Like, people went specifically to sit outside the stadium and listen. I'm sure plenty of those people were maybe hoping to get tickets too, but plenty of them were there regardless. Right. And it was a freaking zoo.
Good for her. That's awesome, bud. And a great story.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. And then the last thing we want to talk about, not as fun of a topic, but it's Celtics had a chance at history last night, and they just couldn't pull it together.
It was like brutal. Like, I don't even understand what happened. Like, they were one of the top 3-point shooting teams of the season. In like the last 2 games, they could not hit a shot.
Honestly, I want to turn the TV off when Tatum rolled his ankle.
When the second that happened, I'm like, this is a terrible omen for the way way things were going.
Could they have overcome it? Yes, of course they could have overcome it. But like, it was more of a bad omen at the time. And I was like, you got to be shitting me.
And just constant playing catch up. Just playing catch up the entire game. Caleb freaking Martin. Guy averaged 9 points this season. What's going on with that? Or something? I heard that he was, I think he averaged like 9 points this season. He was like going to be in the Euro League. What
is going on? The guy just made himself $100 million this series. It's freaking nuts, dude. He was hitting everything. And Gabe Vincent, and even Butler, he hit some big shots.
Always.
I don't know, dude. It was tough to watch, man. Like, Jaylen Brown back to dribbling like Ellie dribbles, you know what I mean? Like, or my kids play basketball. It's freaking ridiculous. Because I'm a big Jaylen guy, man. Like, he just turned the ball over, 8-9 times yesterday?
He was brutal. He was absolutely brutal. The dumb fouls. Dumb shots. I don't. You want to be reactive to this because they are such a good team. So I'm not going to. I'm not saying that because I think, and I heard this in other words too, and I completely agree with it. Is like all you ask for is a chance every year to be like the Patriots. Like, for how do they keep their dynasty going? Was like they kept it going because every year they knew they were going to be in it. They were going to be the final 4 teams, final 6, whatever, 8 teams, and then a lot can happen that can go your way. You know what I mean? That little bounces and breaks and stuff like that. And with Jaylen and Tatum, you have that opportunity, I feel like. Every year you have that opportunity. Because what could you possibly get for him That's his equivalent.
Yeah, it's some draft. It's just like every other superstar gets traded. You get a poo-poo platter of draft picks, and guys that we already who are you going to get, like a Grant Williams type guy, or something like that. So it's just
and I'm not
dude.
actually, I maybe was when they were down 3-0, but I maybe it's unpopular, but I actually think they keep Mazzulla next year.
I don't know.
And I know he's only 34. He's got a. Again, what are they going to do? So they're going to have like 4 head coaches in 4 years? Like, how is that any recipe for success? You know what I mean? Like, he learned things as this series went on. And I think if you kind of set him up with some better assistant coaches or more veteran assistant coaches, it could be helpful. But got 4 head coaches in 4 years? Like, it's not a recipe.
Yeah, that's not a good thing for sure. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what happens. I got to give Tatum credit. Or at least from what I can tell, he looked like he was in a lot of pain.
Yes,
and
he did. Yep.
I mean, I'd be wondering how he's feeling today, or what his availability would have even been in the finals if they had made it. Because I know what it's like to have those ankle injuries. I've had plenty of them, as you know. You injure yourself, you can grind through it based on adrenaline and the fact that you're already out there moving and loose and all that stuff. But like, dude, I bet when he woke up this morning, that thing was not in good shape, and he was grimacing the whole time. And I don't know if he was, making it seem worse than it was, but like I was really proud of the effort that he did in a big game set.
He shouldn't be going anywhere, and he's only 25. He's 25. I'm like 12 years older than Jason Tatum. It's insane. You know what I mean? He's still not at his peak yet. I compare myself to Jason Tatum a lot. So,
dude, when you say something like that, we're old. It's I remember in my life of being younger than professional athletes, and now we're like freaking way older than them.
It's insane. So, and then Brogdon didn't even play last night. I know he was available, but I don't think he ended up seeing.
He was in there a little bit, but he really, I loved Brogdon. Like, I thought Brogdon was the difference for them. Like, I thought Brogdon was. So when you look at it,
last year versus this year.
This year, it's like, okay, we have our team plus Brogdon
and Robert Williams.
And a healthy Rob, and they have their team minus Hero. Obviously, guys have stepped up, like we already talked about Martin, Gabe Vincent, and stuff. But like, it seems like we added to our team, and they lost a 20-point guy, and they're the 8 seed, and we're the 2 seed, and we're like clearly the better team. I don't know, man. I honestly don't even know who I want to win. I guess I kind of want the Heat to win.
You to your credit, again, to your crazy credit, on this podcast at the beginning of the NBA season with Beds, you picked the Heat to Heat Golden State or whatever, right? Was your pick?
I think so.
And you ended up jumping ship on them.
I definitely took the Heat to make the finals preseason. Well, because I was out on the Celtics. Dude. Like, I was still pissed the whole. I mean, as pissed as I could be as a 41-year-old person at a professional sports team, but like, I was out on the Celtics. I was so disappointed in their performance in the finals last year. Obviously, it was a great run to get there, but like, Tatum folded his tent. And
then stuff with it, Ime, that stuff happened like right before the season.
So it's like, how could I come into the season and predict the Celtics to make it to the finals? And I still think, Jimmy Butler coming off of last year was the man. I was scared as hell of him. He didn't have like this crazy regular season, and the Heat weren't very good throughout the season. So obviously I fell out of love with him. But going into the season, it's like, dude, that's a great team that we were lucky to get by. And I thought our team sucked in the Ume stuff. So I wasn't surprised to see them do well. But I was surprised when they got in as an 8 seed for them to be making it to the finals.
They almost lost to Atlanta. Well, they did lose to Atlanta in the play-in game.
They did lose to Atlanta.
And
they beat the Bulls. They could have easily lost that game and not even have made the playoffs. So it is kind of a wild story, man. Ton of respect for Jimmy Butler and I guess what we do over there. It's hard to not have respect for him. It's not like
and now,
it's not like the Yankees. I hate him or anything like that. It's good, man.
And now they're running into the Jokic machine. It's an interesting series to watch. So
I think it starts on June 1st, which is
Thursday, and 8:30 starts, so a little bit more manageable. Sunday's going to be 8:00, so a little bit more manageable to stay up for.
Wow, no. So, anyways, it's a bummer that it's happening. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the draft coming up if they do make any moves, and then them coming back next year. But if they can hold it generally together, add a bench coach. I don't think the run's over yet. I don't think our window's closed yet.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. But I'm on the, if possible, keep Tatum and Brown together, but we'll see. Well, I did see today, Schefter tweeted it's 100 days till the first regular season NFL game. So,
dude, which is great, but that means the summer's.
No, let's enjoy.
There's a lot of fun stuff in the next 100 days. Then.
Yeah, awesome, bud.
Dude, great podcast. Thank you for coming on. This, I think, might be one of the longest ones. So we'll do it again. We'll find something else to talk about, another show, another current event, or something to chat about, and do it again.
You got it, bud. Thanks for having me.
All right, see you, bud.
Bye.